to the 1950s in the United States. In this context, Ray Bradbury is a middle-aged man that is writing a book. This book will be his masterpiece, Fahrenheit 451. Please keep in mind that this book has not been finished yet.
Wow. Still doesn't make sense. It means something, but I don't know what it is. Oh! I didn't expect any visitors. Come closer if you want. I'm just finishing my masterpiece. And, well, I've written some stories before. Maybe you know The Martian Chronicles. I wrote it 3 years ago, and it succeeded in some way. As you see, I'm poor, but one day maybe that situation will change. I was raised in a very humble family in Waukegan, Illinois. By the way, what kind of host am I? My name is Raymond Bradbury, and I was born in Waukegan, Illinois in 1920. Right now I'm finishing, as I said, my new book. And, well, before starting to tell you about my new book, I will tell you some things about my life. When I was a child, I had a very, very strong bond with my family. In fact, one aunt of me gave me this gift that nurtured this passion for literature. This aunt was called Eva. And with her, my passion for reading started. And, well, books were not my only passion. I also enjoyed movies, silent movies, when I was a child and when I was an adolescent. Movies such as Dracula, The Mummy, Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man. These movies influenced me in some way in my writing. They were very attractive for me. I had so much creativeness in my mind, and these movies influenced me to write and influence my style. Also, there are some authors that also had influenced my works. Authors like H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, and Edgar Allan Poe. Those are my masters. And also, well, of course, there are books that have been an inspiration for my work. Books like A Princess of Mars and 1984. These last two books are great inspirations for my last two works, which are The Martian Chronicles and Fahrenheit 451, the name of my new book, which I'm just finishing. So, well, currently we're living a very agitated era in the US and in the whole world. The African American people are fighting for their rights in what is called the civil rights movement. Also, we are at war, but no one's been killed, and no one's been under attack. This is a subtle war. It's hidden, but it's still there. It's the Cold War, and it started after the Second World War. And also, well, in the last years there has been a very strong boom of color television. Families are not talking anymore. They're not paying attention to each other. Televisions are invading houses. They're cheap, and they are starting to spread all over the US, and not only the US, all over the world. I don't know if this technology will help us or will harm us in the future. But well, I was talking to you about my new book, and I started to tell you about my lab. So right now, I'm going to tell you about one character of this book. His name is Guy Montag, but let him introduce himself, because he's right here. Please, Guy.
I am Guy Montag. I'm married to Mildred, and I'm a fireman. My job is very important in this city. Literature is not allowed, so we burn books, and we even burn the houses in which literature is presented. One day, I was walking back home when I suddenly saw a 16-year-old girl. I met her. Her name was Clarice. She died. We used to have conversations about literature, family, very touching issues, and the real origin of my job. She asked, "Was it always like this? Must we burn books? Must we burn books? Was it always like this? Shouldn't I be preventing fires instead of starting them?" I was really confused. The days passed, and I was in the station when the alarm sounded, and we answered it as swiftly as we start fires, but something was different this time. When we arrived at the house, there was a lady there, the house owner. She said that she wouldn't leave, that she will stay there in her home with her books. We started the fire, and she died with her books. The woman perished there with her books. I was really shocked. Some days later, I couldn't stand it. I felt as guilty as this woman. My boss, Captain Beatty, came to my house to visit me. He knew that something was wrong. He knew me. I was as guilty as this girl, as this woman, because that day I could have died. I had so many books that I could have died that very same day, but I almost did when they forced me to burn my own house. My wife betrayed me. My wife, Mildred, betrayed me, but I escaped. On my way to survival, I was not alone. I had a friend, Faber, a retired professor, who helped me to survive. As Gardner, another friend, and his people, who rescued me when the police was pursuing me. I stopped being a fireman. Then I was a fugitive. A war started in the country. My city was bombed. After the attack, Gardner, his people, and I returned to the city to rebuild civilization.
Well, thank you, Guy. Still, my masterpiece lacks something. You know, there is a fight in my book, but it's kind of strange. It's not an actual fight. It's about knowledge and ignorance and also censorship. There are many elements that make this story special. Let me introduce censorship to you now.
Hello, good morning. I'm censorship, but who am I? What do I mean? Well, let me tell you that censorship is the suppression or control of ideas and thoughts that may be harmful or may affect people within a society. But who am I within this book? Well, let me tell you that Bradbury never states one single reason of why books were banned in this society. So the reader can infer two main ideas. The first one is about people's envy, and the second one it's about people interests. In the first place, we have people's envy. Why envy, you may wonder? Well, please keep in mind a classroom. We always have one classmate that is outstanding. So what happened with the rest? The rest start feeling disappointed about themselves and also frustrated. So within this book, government decided to suppress or ban books because books make people unhappy. So why envy, you may wonder? Because people don't like to be inferior to other people. In the second place, we have people interest. During this time, there was a boom of TV in colors and also fast cars, and a lot of propaganda in the streets. So people decided to stop reading. It wasn't the government who banned books, but it was people that was not interested anymore in reading. So these two main factors combined can create just one reason, but as I said before, Bradbury never stated just one reason of this. But let's go to a real context. Do you know that I have been important through history? During the Nazi Germany, I was really important. Many students from Germany burned books. But you know why? Because those books were against the German spirit. So they burned more than 25,000 volumes. Those books talk about Marxism, Bolshevism, and communism. But after the book burning, they received a strong message. This message came from Helen Keller, a blind writer. He wrote a letter for them, and it said, "You may burn my books and the books of the best minds in Europe, but the ideas those books contain have passed through millions of channels and will go on." Well, but let's come to South America. In 1980s, Argentina suffered one of the worst book burning in history. More than 1.5 million books were burned by officers of that country. But here in Chile, we have passed through many things. One of those was dictatorship. And during that dictatorship, we had also censorship. But not just books were banned, but also music, television programs, and movies. Well, you know that militaries burned books about Cubism because they thought that those books talked about Cuba. Well, there is clearly reflected ignorance. But let me tell you that movies were banned also because of their content, sexual content, or because were against the party that was ruling during those times. Some examples of movies were The Happy Hooker and Deep Red. They also banned a movie about Che Guevara. But some singers also were banned, but not because of the content of the songs, but because they were them. Victor Jara, Silvio Rodriguez, and Fernando Viego were some of the band singers. Let me tell you one important thing. Do you know that TVN, the national channel, during those times bought a TV program called Holocaust, but they didn't pass that program because they thought that they could have many problems because of that. So self-censorship also existed during those times. But what is the importance of censorship? Why am I so important for governments? Well, let me tell you that for governments it's really important to keep uneducated people and people with no thinking. Because for them it's going to be easier to manage their minds and their lives. So, as Freddie Douglass stated in the past, once you learn to read, you will be free forever.
So until now, I have told you about my life, about my book. But, you know, there is a struggle going on in this story. And, well, this struggle is present in our society. So, I want to create a mirror between this book and our society. So, well, just let her speak and make it clear for you.
You may be wondering, who am I? Well, I'm two things at the same time. I'm ignorance, represented as this television, and I'm knowledge, represented as books. But how can I explain this in a better way? Well, I will do it with some words from Fahrenheit 451. I will read a quotation. Who has ever torn himself from the cloth that encloses you when you drop a seat in a TV parlor? It grows you any shape it reaches. It is an environment as real as the world. It becomes, and it's the truth. Books can be beaten down with reason, but with all my knowledge and skepticism, I have never been able to argue with a 100-piece symphony orchestra, full color, 3 dimensions, and being a part of those incredible parlors. Basically, what we have here is the differences between TV parlors and book parlors. Because when you hear this television, you hear someone else talking, someone else's thoughts. It's not yours. This basically is summarized in 2 words: knowledge and understanding. Knowledge is portrayed as television. This television gives you knowledge, but you cannot do anything with that knowledge. However, books gives you understanding, because you can take that understanding of the words and use it as you want to. Here in Fahrenheit 451, we see how people are banned of books are banned, because they provide weapons to think, and are replaced with television that do not give you anything but colorful pictures. And this is perfectly portrayed in 3 characters. Ignorance is portrayed in Mildred, Montag's wife. Ignorance controlled her lives through this television, through this mechanical instrument. She doesn't care about her husband. She only cares about, the only sentimental attachment that she has is the family that lives in that television, in the soap opera that she sees, that she watches. She also avoids reality. She was depressed, but she never faced this depression. She never talked about this depression with his husband. She only said, she invited friends to join her to listen this only radio program that was allowed, and the television. So she never talked about how she felt. We also have the other side of me, the knowledge, represented by Faber. Faber was the knowledge itself, but he also was cowardly itself. Because when you have knowledge, you have to do something with that knowledge. But Faber never did anything until Montag found him. He is like Montag's complement, because Montag wanted to do something with their books, with his books. But Faber had the knowledge of reading those books. So when they were combined, they create something bigger than themselves. They create a whole revolution. Even though they didn't want to do this, they create a whole revolution. And now we have Beatty. Beatty portrays both words, ignorance and knowledge, in just one person. Because he's full of contradiction. Beatty, while you are present in this book, you see how Beatty has the knowledge, but he uses his knowledge not to empower people, as knowledge should be used. He only uses knowledge to keep people ignorant. And that is the contradiction. When you have knowledge, you cannot allow yourself to keep that knowledge for yourself. You have to share it. And that is what Beatty never does, because he's a manipulative person. That's when knowledge and ignorance are combined, are a powerful and very dangerous weapon. Now we're going to escape from this 1950s reality, and we're going to go nowadays. Knowledge versus ignorance is so present here in Chile that mass media manipulation is present in our life, in our daily life. For example, we have this newspapers that instead of talking, for example, what's happening with education, what's happening with workers, what's happening in our country, they talk about just one person that is famous, and that's why she deserves a whole new page on the newspaper. We also have mass media manipulation in television, as I told you, because they manipulate what we see, and instead of giving us powerful weapons such as culture, such as information, such as news that are valuable, they only give us garbage programs, such as reality shows, such as programs of famous people in which they talk about their lives. And also, but we also have the knowledge represented by our new generations that are fighting for what they want. A few time ago, we had this demonstration of teachers and students. They are fighting right now for what they want. So this is what we have to, that is what we have to have in mind. Because even though there will always be ignorance, we can fight it with knowledge. And we can fight it right now, right here, by reading, by informing ourselves about what's happening, and by demonstrating and giving our opinion about certain topics. We have to inform ourselves. We have to read. We have to be there when things happen, because we need to be part of that in order to make a change.
Right. Finishing with the last details of this book. And, well, when you read it, you will realize I have used imagery, metaphors, and allusions. Lots of allusions to many other masterpieces during literature history. There are some metaphors, like the sea and the sand, for instance. And, well, you know, I'm running out of time because I just rent this typewriter for an hour and I have to pay for it. So, well, I'm quite poor, as you see, so I think it's time for me to stop telling you about my work. But the name of my book, why is it called like this? Fahrenheit 451. I'm going to explain it. It is the temperature at which book paper catches fire and burns. So that's it. I'm going to pay for the typewriter. See you later.